Now to that airplane joyride, some more information out of Washington State, ending in a fiery crash and the death of a 29-year-old man, raising security concerns across the country. How in this post-9/11 era can someone steal a plane and take off from a major airport? Airport leaders in Seattle meeting to talk about security policy and protocols. Leah Gabriel, Fox News correspondent, former Navy pilot, here on this, and good day to you.
Good day to you.
How's this happen?
It is actually quite easy for something like this to happen. When you think about airports across the country, not just these major airports like Seattle-Tacoma, SeaTac, there are smaller airports that have large jets, private jets, where there's very little security to get out on the tarmac. Now, in this particular case, there was more security, and according to that airport and the Port Authority there, they actually started security screening more so than other airports do, where they required things like biometrics, special badging for airline employees and for the employees of the airport itself, baggage handlers, people who are close to fuel, to have this additional screening. I spoke with airline pilots this morning, though, who told me that in a lot of places, these airports do not require their employees, the baggage handlers, the maintainers, to actually go through the physical TSA security. They get badged outside of it. But the bottom line, Bill, is basically they're in a circle of trust. They're in a circle of trust where they have been vetted and screened on some level by the airfield, by the airlines, to be able to be in and around these aircraft. But it's very easy to take off an airplane. You have Microsoft Simulator that a lot of pilots use to train, to learn how to fly an airplane. You can learn the entire sequence for how to start up an airplane. You can learn how to fly it. The hard part is landing it.
Yeah.
And if you listen to this guy, it sounded like he knew he was going to have trouble.
2 points on that. Based on your training, you can learn to do all this on a simulator?
You really can.
It's possible.
Absolutely. You can learn to do all the procedures that you need to do.
Can you learn how to land a plane on a simulator and be successful?
So can you? Yes. However, there's a lot of things, just the physicality of what it feels like to fly an airplane and the different conditions of flight that you have to experience. Landing is actually much harder than being able to take off. Taking off the airplanes, a lot of these can almost take off themselves. Now, in this particular case, I spoke with a pilot who's rated in the Q400, and he said that the starting sequence is not easy, but yes, you can practice this in a simulator. You can learn how to do it. You also heard in the audio recordings, you could hear some bells and whistles going off. That indicates that switches and buttons weren't necessarily in the right place, right? But he got this thing flying, and he could fly it around.
When you say Q400, that's the type of plane here,
right? Which
is a turboprop,
right?
Which is a little more difficult, perhaps, to start. Or it takes more time. How would you characterize
It's
that?
just that you'd have to know the sequence. You have to know basically how to get the fuel going into the right places. You have to know the particular sequence. But listening to this young man on the radio, when he's talking to the air traffic controller, he's like, "Hey man, I got this. I've flown simulators before." He had posted some video on YouTube from him inside of an aircraft. So he's somebody who's been around planes. He's probably was an aviation enthusiast. I want to say I have to commend the air traffic controller who was on the radio with him. Did a very good job of trying to keep him calm, trying to get him to consider landing. Presented opportunities, places for him to land, but this guy just sounded like he lost the bubble.
It was also described to us by an expert earlier today that they were getting him to do left-hand turns to get him away from any population centers. Here's what gets me, though. SeaTac's a big airport.
Yeah.
Whether it's a big airport or a medium-sized airport or small airports, they don't lock planes.
Right.
If you have the ability and you have the access, you could probably do the same thing.
Bill, it's like anything else, whether it's the military or the U.S. government or here on Fox News, when you're inside a circle of trust, you're vetted for that, but you never know when somebody's going to have a screw loose and they're just going to do something crazy that's unexpected, and that's what this sounds like. A lot of rules are written in blood. A lot of rules are written because of things that have happened where you go, okay, we're going to have to tighten up these security procedures. I believe that we'll see procedures tightened up. I've already heard of people talking about maybe there being necessary codes in some of these aircraft that require software to start. Something like my Cessna that I fly all the time. I mean, that's pretty easy to, not to make any suggestions here, but it's pretty easy to hop in a Cessna, use a screwdriver to get it started up.
It's really interesting
take it airborne.
It's really good analysis, too. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Leah.